Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's ready to renew his rivalry with Ghana. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I didn't even have to wait 4 years this time.
So the US is playing Ghana this Saturday in what I guess we're going to call a pre-Gold Cup friendly. It's the Gold Cup warm-up game.
Yep, and much like Matt Doyle, I don't always care about the results of friendlies. I like to see what happens and how players perform. But overall, I don't really care about if we win a friendly. This is very much not the case.
Because it's Ghana?
This weekend. Yes, I want to beat Ghana.
Do Ghana feel the same way?
Probably not.
I'm not sure they do. This may be one of those like England-Germany rivalries where England really care and Germany are like, what now? No, we play the Netherlands.
Yeah, but I think that's also like the advantage when you're the one who is the winner of that contest more often. Ghana won it, I guess they won outright in 2006, won in extra time in 2010, and lost in 2014. So USA on a one-game winning streak right now.
We hold the title right now.
We do.
Yeah.
And so I guess technically it's 1-1-1, right? Because if you go to extra time, or is it if you go to penalties, then you haven't technically lost? Is that how it works?
Yeah, Asamoah Gyan took care of the US in extra time in 2014, 2010.
Yeah, but I guess anytime you are the bogey team for another team, it's tough for you to see them as your rival, whereas they definitely will get up for that game a little bit.
Yeah, they just call you 3 points.
Yeah.
All right, so once again, the US starts its Gold Cup campaign July 8th against Panama. This is exactly 1 week before. It's in East Hartford, Connecticut. It's a friendly against Ghana, and it is the first. We're going to see basically what Bruce Arena does with that 23-man squad, Gold Cup squad, which is, very much like a non-first choice squad. Experimental, bit of a page turner, bit of a head scratcher. So we're going to see what sort of 11 he's going to put on the field. Before we get into that, shall we talk a little about what Ghana are bringing to the table?
Sure. And the answer is a lot of unknowns, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, well, so for example, the Ayew brothers, Andre Ayew, Jordan Ayew, not coming, right? Is going to be there. Asamoah Gyan, the aforementioned Asamoah Gyan, who scored against the US in 2010, really just burst past Demerit and Bocanegra, and in 2014 provided the back heel assist that split us open.
And then was in that squad in 2006. I think didn't play against the United States, but did start like every other game. So maybe we're just the off game for him.
So Ghana played Mexico last night. Gyan didn't start. But I've got to think he's going to start, or at least going to play some role.
I would say
against the United States. Any other names that people need to look out for on this Ghana team?
Maybe not necessarily look out for, but there's a lot of familiar names in there. If you're an MLS fan, I think Harrison Afful.
A lot of MLS names. This is kind of like an MLS all-star-ish game.
Yep. I mean, Harrison Afful. I think both Mensah and Boy are MLS players. I could be wrong on that one, but I know there's a lot of Columbus represented.
John Boy's not. John Boy's not. Jonathan Mensah.
Yeah, you're right. John Boy was. There it is. Thank you. I was about to say I knew that because of Turkey. Well done, buddy. Yeah.
You've also got Akam from Chicago Fire.
Of course.
Poku is on the roster.
Kwadu Poku from Miami FC scored the 93rd minute goal.
And Kofi from the Revs. A lot of Revs on the field here. There may be some more as well. Abu from Columbus Crew. Yeah. So there you go. We've listed the MLS players.
We did that off the top of our heads, just to clarify. I'm pretty pleased with us.
But I do have some names written down based on the highlights I saw against Mexico. Number 22, Achiampong, looked dangerous.
He did.
And looked willing to try things, including shots from distance and all kinds of things. So definitely a winger, I think, someone to look out for.
I'm gonna say Ghana didn't necessarily take their chances in front of goal. Yeah. They definitely had some opportunities against Mexico. Obviously did not take them since they lost 1-0. But you do wonder if Asamoah Gyan is in there if they do take those, because he is a man who it doesn't take many chances for him to find the back of the net.
So should we talk a little about Asamoah Gyan before we move on to the US? Asamoah Gyan,
he's a curiosity.
He is only 31 years old, but I think everyone thinks of him as being older because he took the big money move to the Middle East at the age of 26.
He took the move you make when you're 33 when he was 26.
He was a pioneer in terms of leaving
one way to put it.
Leaving the Premier League to play in a lesser league for a lot more money.
Yeah. I guess
he even went to China in between as well. Yeah, he pioneered that. He was really the first to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, it clearly hasn't hurt him from a national team standpoint. I mean, he probably could have been up there in terms of where he was playing with like how big of a club he was playing for. But maybe that's what happens.
He did them better than Sunderland.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe that's what happens is you go to Sunderland and you're like, you know what? No, never mind. I just want money. I'm good. And maybe it's I want to be very hot all the time.
Again.
Yeah, exactly.
Jinx.
Yeah.
I think. But we were talking off air about like what is it that he's good at. So we went back and watched some footage, and maybe that goal against the US in 2010 is a really good example, which is when that ball goes over the top, he's up against Demerit and Bocanegra. Gian is fast and strong, but not just in that like raw athlete but doesn't know what to do with it kind of way, sort of in a way of like a man who has weapons and knows exactly how to use them.
Yeah.
Right? He uses that pace and strength to body the defenders and then burst past them, time his run perfectly, and then he can finish. The man can finish.
And it reminds me of like peak Didier Drogba, only in that one of the things that stands out to me in all of Drogba's career for some reason is a miss he had. But he was like, it was peak Drogba, and he shot from maybe like 2 yards from the end line near the corner flag, but he still shot and it hit the post. And I remember the announcer being like, I suppose when you're in that type of form, you try those types of shots.
Yeah.
That's what Asamoah Gyan is in my mind. He's a guy who like, he'll have no space to shoot, but will get a 40-yard rocket off.
Yes,
or he
he'll make the
will
space.
seem like he's like totally boxed in and then put in a perfect back heel for an equalizing goal. So he's just kind of that type of player who's going to try stuff, but it seems like he has the skill and ability and belief to pull that stuff off.
So a player for the US to really watch out for, right? He might be the best player the US faces in this whole summer.
Yep.
It's possible, right?
It's a decent shout.
A couple of other notes on Ghana. Number 20, Waris, I think is how you pronounce
Abdul
it.
Waris, yep.
Yeah, he looked good in the highlights. So he didn't score, but he kept sort of pushing.
He's another
Mexico's
attacker,
back line. And then we saw them play a formation that looked essentially like an empty bucket, right? 2 defensive midfielders, sit deep, don't really join the attack, but then 2 wingers who'll go at you and 2 pure forwards. So expect like 4 really attacking players, but midfielders not committed forward. Okay, so Saturday, 4:45 p.m. Eastern kickoff, East Hartford, Connecticut. ESPN, Unimas, Univision Deportes. You notice I didn't look at my piece of paper.
I know.
Top of my head.
We're doing well so far.
What do we think Bruce Arena is going to do with this 23-man roster?
No idea.
We don't know, do we?
We don't.
tried to try and work it out, like what he's thinking. I think we're going to... we don't have an inside line on this. We're going to find out what he's thinking when we see the 11 he puts out against Ghana. Yeah,
and really, I think, like, again, a view behind the curtain is that we spent a decent amount of time before we started recording being like, well, it could be that, or it could be this, or it could be that. And essentially, we would have recorded the most tedious podcast ever, because it would have just been us circling ideas over and over and over again. And I think that's what the situation is that you have this relatively experimental U.S. national team roster coming in, and it could be lots of different things. It could be lots of different formations with lots of different faces.
It's also a lot of guys who can play various formations. For example, Christian Roldan can be defensive midfielder, can be right winger, right? Could even be an attacking midfielder. There's a lot of guys like that who could play either side or through the middle. Bedoya, another one like that. So it makes it really hard to put your finger on exactly what Arena's... Like, we don't know what role Bruce Arena has called up Kellen Rowe to perform. Is he there as a central attacking midfielder or as a right winger? So all of that makes it really hard to tell. We'll know a little more after Saturday.
And so you kind of already don't know that even just going into the tournament, but then going into a friendly before the tournament, then you wonder, like, does he want to give the guys who have struggled a little bit in camp minutes to see how they do, like in an 11v11 situation? Do you go with the guys who are probably going to get more minutes and be your starters in that group stage? Or do you get some combination thereof? And this is where you kind of go down all these different rabbit holes. So instead, I think what we're going to do is just focus on what we want to see.
Yes. Okay, so before we get into actual lineups we want to see, is there any sort of players you want to see on the field or you're most excited to see? We sort of talked about this when the roster came out, but now it gets to friendly time. Who are you looking forward to seeing?
I think, going back to, we had this conversation a little bit when the roster came out. I don't have him in the 11 that I would like to see starting, but like anytime you can get new people, like you get to see new people, it's just exciting. It's the same thing as...
Like, I like to meet new people.
Like when you're playing FIFA and you transfer somebody into your team, it's always exciting to see that player now in your team. So I think that's where I am with Dom Dwyer. I'm excited to see Dom Dwyer wearing a U.S. jersey, but I don't have him starting. I think the one that I do have starting and I'm very excited to see, not surprisingly, is Kenny Saif.
Everybody wants to see Kenny Saif, right? We've been talking about Kenny Saif for a while now, but he's another one where we don't really know what position, right? We know he's left-footed. We know he played left-back for Ghent in Belgium or left wing-back. Can play left wing. We had a tweet from Matt Tomaszewicz, Shin Guardian, saying that he thinks or he's seen that Saif plays on the right with his left foot and cuts inside and allows the fullback to overlap. So that's already 3 positions he could play.
Yeah, and then so
he's not playing left back though, is he?
He's hopefully not. Yeah. No. And then just looking at the team from a broader perspective, I would say there's a decent chance that if I really had time to think about this and wasn't just winging it, that I might be able to think of another game. But I want to say this is the most important game that the U.S. has played without Michael Bradley in a very long time, which is to say it's not that important of a game, but it is like a friendly...
He's usually there.
It's a tune-up game for the Gold Cup where you kind of are figuring things out. I feel like usually you'd see him in at least some capacity. You're not going to see him. So I think it will be interesting to see who steps up and does his job and does that leadership role in the center of midfield. I think that's another thing. I'm excited to see who does that because it could be any number of people.
There are so many central midfielders. We did half joke, half really think about picking our team by picking names out of a hat in midfield because it's just so many guys that we would like to see. Okay, you ready to move on to picking our 11 for USA versus Ghana Saturday afternoon? We sort of agree on our back fours, right? And then, so the way we did this, we talked about what we're going to do, and then we diverged and each picked our own team to avoid any disagreements.
Yeah, basically. And again, this is basically because we could pick any number of 11s in any formation because it really kind of all seems feasible. And really, in the end, that's a way of saying I don't know what Bruce Arena is going to do, so I can say what I would do and want to do.
Before you do that, so one way I phrased this was to say that I'm happy with to see almost any of these names. Like genuinely, if it's Saif or if it's Arreola or if it's Bedoya or if it's Roldan, like it probably won't be all 4 of those guys, but maybe any 2 of those. That's the only guy. Honestly, that's the only guy I'm not as excited to see, just because I've seen him before. Because I'm not a fan of him playing on the wing necessarily for the US national team. I'm more of a fan of him playing forward, and because I know Bruce already knows him. And he's not a new face. And he's not in great form. So that's the only name I would not be excited to see, but I could also see him starting because Bruce trusts him.
Let's not go down that road. Let's talk about what we want to see. So I'm going to go, as you said, we kind of had the same goalkeeper back 4, so I'll just run through it really quickly. Bill Hamid in goal. I think we're both cool with that one.
Is that a local choice? I kind of feel like it is, right? A lot of DC fans have just been, I feel like we've been waiting 5-6 years for Bill Hamid to start for the US national team, and we just want him to finally get a chance. I think it might be Brad Guzan. But I'd like to see
start this game. Could be Brad Guzan. I think it will be Brad Guzan.
Or Sean Johnson is the other choice.
At least in the Panama game would be my guess. Yeah, and I do think for Bill Hamid, this might be his last best chance to kind of show that he belongs in the U.S. national team because he's had call-ups here and there. I think
often gets injured.
I think he's had to miss some due to injury, but you've got Ethan Horvath, and now you've got Jesse Gonzalez. His paperwork has gone through.
Can we talk about that? His one-time switch, which we understand was filed before this, but didn't get processed and cleared before the 23-man roster was announced. We think he would have been on the 23, right?
We do.
Do we think now that Jesse Gonzalez has made the one-time switch that he can be called in after the group stage, or is it kind of too late?
He can be called in. It will be a tough ask because you can replace, up to 6?
Yeah.
And our speculation was that it would be Tim Howard who'd be brought in to get him some kind of meaningful first-team minutes in a competitive...
And just to have your best keeper for the more competitive teams, to play Costa Rica or Mexico or whoever it may be.
And so you're going to have people that were probably already going to be sent home anyway. You're probably going to have a couple injuries. So it would be tough to have 2 replacement goalkeepers come in.
Fair.
Yeah, so I think we'll either see Jesse Gonzalez and it will be Brad Guzan starting for most of the tournament, because that's the other thing, is you wouldn't bring in an experimental goalkeeper to start in the knockout round. I don't think, at least. It would have made more sense for him to be in this initial squad so he could have played against, say, Martinique.
Yeah, he probably would have started this game, maybe. He would have been my choice. But anyway, we're saying Bill Hamid because it's about time. Right?
Yes.
With a salute to Sean Johnson, who's also a fine keeper, but Bill Hamid because it's about time.
There is a small part of me, if we go down this rabbit hole, that is
we seem to have fallen into
So
it.
Jesse Gonzalez, one-time switch, it means he can't go back. He will be a U.S. national team player one way or the other. There is a part of me that wonders, is this the first of a series of negative events? Just because...
For Jesse Gonzalez or for the U.S. national team?
For Jesse Gonzalez. Just that, this seemed like it was the perfect moment for him to get that switch in. Now he can be in with the Gold Cup team, get used to some people,
and
maybe get a game or 2.
Was slow on the paperwork.
And now he misses this tournament. And as I said, it's going to be difficult unless Bruce Arena brings him in instead of Tim Howard. That could be difficult. But after that...
January camp?
That's the thing, right? Yeah. Except that the general consensus is that Bruce Arena won't use the January camp before World Cup to do the usual January camp, try some people, see what's up.
It will be more
about fine-tuning. And so then you do wonder...
It'll be about protecting yourself from cyber attacks.
Sure. So then my question is, when do you see Jesse Gonzalez again? And so it does feel a little bit like maybe if he doesn't get any time here, then maybe he'll get some friendlies here and there, but it's tough to know when he'll get competitive minutes.
Ooh, that's a depressing
right?
prediction.
It is kind of a bummer. So hopefully things work out, but it's just a little negative side note before we move on. You're welcome.
Okay, so Bill Hamid in goal. We talked earlier about who we want to see in the back four. The centre-back options are Omar Gonzalez and Matt Beasler as your more experienced players. Matt Hedges as your less experienced but slightly experienced player who had to pull out of January camp, but seems like Arena likes him. And then young Matt Miazga, who seems like one for the future, but really only has that one cap to cap time.
I was going to ask, does he only have the one? Because I think Hedges has two now. Right, so I think Hedges is the senior in terms of the two of them, but that's about it,
So we came up with this idea that maybe we want to win against Ghana, right? But we don't want to necessarily go with just risk, like being risk averse and just going with your two most experienced centre backs in a friendly, right? So it's probably not going to be Gonzalez and Beasler. And then we had the idea that you don't go with Hedges and Miazga because it's maybe a little too experimental, and Asamoah Gyan could just blow straight through the middle of that. So maybe we go one experienced, one from the younger group.
Yeah, I think it's that for sure. But it is also like I want to win this game.
Okay, like I forgot you're renewing the rivalry.
I have set my team up to beat Ghana, like not necessarily to prepare and see who does what. Like I have the US in a 4-3-3 for that reason. Ooh. Like I'm trying different stuff all over the place.
Okay.
So I wanted to look at this as who do I want to see come in with an eye towards the future, but also who do I want to see come in based on like current form, what we know about them. So I do have Omar Gonzalez, and then I have Matt Hedges.
I have the same. I'd be happy with the other way around, but that's the most comfortable for me.
Neither one of us had Matt Beasler.
Yeah, but it's more just like I think we've seen a lot more of Omar in a US jersey lately, so we sort of feel more secure. Yeah, right. And then Matt Hedges, I think, just deserves his shot because he didn't get it in January, and he just seems to be like ready to take his place on the international stage.
Yep. And then I think the other aspect of it for me is that like I do think if you have Asamoah Gyan up there, or you do have kind of like more talented Ghanaian attackers, I would just be sad that if like Matt Miazga came in and looked a little uncertain, a little bit shaky, that then maybe that hurts his confidence. I just feel like maybe you give him a little bit more time and maybe Matt Hedges shows why he belongs.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so my fullbacks, I've gone for Villafana at left back over Morrow, just because Villafana's in this good run of form for the US national team. So why not?
Key distinction.
Let's just see it again.
Yeah.
And then Eric Lehigh at right back, because again, it's about time. We've been waiting for years and years and years for Eric Lehigh to get back in this national team.
You will get no arguments from me. So shall we move on?
The alternative is Graham Zusi. And actually, that's another one I would not be too excited about Graham Zusi starting at right back, but it's also not impossible.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, nothing is impossible. But yeah, I'm with you that that's the back four that I want to see.
Oh, okay. So one more point on this. I think Zusi is the name that Arena knows. So probably if the Panama game was tomorrow, Zusi might start. But this is the chance for Lehigh to play, impress, have a chance at nailing the right back spot down to start against Panama.
Yeah, right? I'm okay with that.
Okay. So I think this is where we diverge.
But that is like the thing with Bruce Arena is that I could see him being like, oh, I know who's going to start there, so I'll give, and it's not going to be Zusi, so I'll give him some minutes here. But I could also see, and I think this is more likely, at least in this one specific position situation, Lehigh maybe is the number 2 right back right now, and so you want to see him cement that spot before this tournament, or he will further cement that spot. Yeah. So I could see Bruce Arena using this as a legitimate warm-up, tune-up sort of situation.
I don't want to get into double guessing and triple guessing Bruce Arena.
Yeah, that's fair. So should we move to the midfield? Or do
we agree on our goalkeeper and back four. I think we diverge in terms of formation from here on out. So why don't we go with Taylor Rockwell's team first?
So I've gone 4-3-3 because, again, looking at Ghana, fast, strong, technical. I want to block their opportunities through the middle. I want to make sure that we've got some defensive shield in front of that back four. Okay. But I also don't want to go with just like
you one time switched Ozzy Alonso because I'd be into that.
I thought about it. That was part of my plan. No, but I was like, the one that made sense based on what the United States have done in the past is a 4-2-3-1. But I don't love the idea of that one because especially if you are focused on like the 3 attacking players coming back and making sure they're defensively oriented. We've seen it so many times that then you just have the one guy up top by himself.
So you end up with a 4-5-1. Yeah.
Yeah,
you do, right?
Yeah. I thought you said so you end up with a 4-5-1. Yeah, gotcha. Sorry, I'm with you. So instead I've gone with a 4-3-3, but that midfield 3 is Kellen Acosta, Dax McCarty, and Christian Roldan.
I mean, I can't argue against that. I mean, those are 3 midfielders I love seeing play, and I'd love to see how they go together. Like, how are you spacing that out? Like, who's the 6 and who's the 8 and who's, I guess, the other 8?
I think I've got Dax as the 6.
This is a Tab Ramos team.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I've got Dax as the 6, Roldan as the 8, and then Kellen Acosta as like the 8.5? Yeah. I don't know. Not quite a 9. Definitely not a 10. But it is also...
Roldan and Acosta both offer some attacking thrust, though. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah. But I think in looking at this team, that is a thing that's interesting, is that there, in my mind, like there's a lot of people who could be a 10. Mm-hmm. There's no clear-cut, this is the guy who's going to replace Christian Pulisic. I guess the argument would be Kellen Rowe.
If we could do that, we'd be thinking about winning World Cups.
True. Right? But, I mean, I guess a lot of people would say Kellen Rowe. You may well say Kellen Rowe. My point is just I just haven't seen him enough. I don't know enough about Kellen Rowe to confidently say, like, he's going to be my number 10. So I'm going with something that I think I'm a little bit more comfortable with, and that's that midfield 3.
I would not be unhappy to see those 3 guys form a midfield together, and then we could really get a look and be like, all right, is this like we're going to move beyond the Jermaine Jones era? We're going to like have a look at what a midfield looks like without Michael Bradley? Yep. These 3 guys, these 3 MLS guys are the guys to do it. Okay, so that leaves 3 forwards. Mm-hmm. Is it just the 3 forwards from the top end of the roster?
It is not.
Oh,
it is only one of the forwards from the top end of the roster.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm all about that hustle.
There you are.
Kenny Saif and Paul Arriola are my 2 winger attacker players with Juan Agudelo as my central striker.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I want that hustle, I want that hard work, and I want that like problematic running that I think both Kenny Saif and Paul Arriola are going to bring in.
Didn't Juan Agudelo say literally to you last week, I prefer to play with 2 strikers?
He did, but I've also seen multiple people talk about how he functions very well as the main man up top, where he is kind of given the keys to the attacking vehicle.
Is it kind of like how I don't like having a deadline tomorrow, but it definitely makes me work a lot harder?
Well, yeah, I guess so, but it's more about like being told not only do you have a deadline tomorrow, but you are the man who can get that deadline. Like you can meet that deadline and no one else can, so go out there and do it. Mm-hmm. And I do think that Juan Agudelo, at least in this formation, is the player most suited to handling that, because he can be the back-to-goal hold-up man, but he can also be the shoot from distance and score pretty goals and get in there and poach some goals, but then link up play. I think he can do it all, at least in this situation.
So Saif and Arriola.
Yep.
I've got to say, I'm not as excited about this as I thought I was going to be, because I thought one of those guys, or maybe all 3 of those guys, would be strikers. Like I thought you were going to go Morris, Dwyer, Agudelo as a front 3, like a more centralised front 3. I see your formation could end up as a 4-5-1.
It could, but I think...
But it can also break, I guess, as well.
But it's also, it blends what I'm excited to see. So as I said, Kenny Saif, I'm excited to see Roldan, I'm excited to see Acosta. And then I think Paul Arriola has played himself into my I like him a lot category, where he works really hard. I just
imagine that in a Lloyd Christmas voice.
Yeah, I like that a lot. But he's worked really hard for the U.S. national team and in Liga MX, and I like him every time I see him. He works and works and works, and he's going to cause problems, and he's going to draw fouls, and he's slightly smaller, and so he'll get knocked over and maybe draw some cards as well. So I put him out there for what he's done and what I think he can do.
So Charlie Hustle on both wings for you, because the only thing we know for sure about Kenny Saif, based on what we've heard from Brian Chiaretta, who seems to be the go-to source for Kenny Saif opinions and facts and news and interviews, is that he is hyper-competitive and will not stop running.
There we go.
Okay, I like it. I would not be sad if that lineup came out. I've gone a slightly different way. Mine's more like a 4-4-2. I've gone with McCarty and Acosta as my central midfield pair. So it's almost like McCarty is replacing Michael Bradley, because that's who he's been understudying. And I see this Gold Cup as a chance for him to step up and own that sort of number 6 position. Yeah. And then Acosta alongside him, who's more of a number 8. Right? He's not a pure attacking midfielder like Pulisic is when they play this 4-1-3-2. Yeah. Acosta's more like, we'll sit alongside McCarty, but we'll also get forward through the middle. Okay. Then on the wings, to start with, I've gone with Alejandro Bedoya on the right, because I think you've got to have someone senior and experienced to sort of set the rhythm, set the tempo, be the exemplar.
So you're putting him on like wide right midfield?
Right midfield, basically, yeah. And then Kenny Saif on the left wing, someone who hasn't played for the US before. So at least the right and the left are kind of balanced out in terms of very US experienced for this roster and absolutely not US experienced for this roster. And I really wanted a front 2. I wanted to just pair 2 of these strikers. I've gone Juan Agudelo and Dom Dwyer.
Okay.
Jordan Morris to come into the game late with some pace, but I like the idea of like Dwyer buzzing around, annoying people, Agudelo doing a bit of hold-up play and like adding a little bit, and just the pairing of Dwyer and Agudelo.
Okay, I'm with you, except that, and I'm going to be honest here and say, this is where my viewing of Major League Soccer has fallen off a little bit. But one thing I do know is that a lot of people were critical of Bruce Arena bringing Dom Dwyer in, not for like any other reason than because his form isn't that great, from what I understand.
Right. Neither's Jordan Morris, is there, right?
And I think that's why I didn't feel comfortable starting Dom Dwyer or Jordan Morris.
So you went with the form striker.
Yeah, I guess in my opinion, Agudelo is a form striker. Or maybe it's just, when you talk to him on the phone, that elevates it a little bit.
No, I think when you look at the numbers this year, like Agudelo has more recently than either. I'm sure if I'm wrong, people will be tweeting right now. They'll be like midway through the first sentence.
As of last week, he was still New England's top scorer.
Okay.
So there's that.
There we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I could see guys like Arrellano coming in late to fill in on the wings. Maybe Kellen Rowe coming in late on one of the wings. I would get Roldan in to replace McCarthy or Acosta. Probably Acosta, like maybe at halftime or 60 minutes in.
I don't have that problem. So. No, the one that I didn't enjoy leaving out of mine is Alejandro Bedoya, because I think he is the old head and he can organize that midfield if he's out wide or if he is a little bit more central.
He's just a smart player as well. Like every pass and touch he makes is very smart and aware and sensible, and he'll make things happen in that way.
Yep.
And if you have at least that one guy, then it sort of sets a tempo for the rest of the team.
Agreed.
All right.
Agreed wholeheartedly.
So there you go. That's USA versus Ghana. It is the friendly 1 week before the Gold Cup. We'll get some answers to the many, many questions posed by Bruce Arena's 23-man roster. Once again, it is 4:45 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, Unimas, and Univision Deportes.
And then we're going to record the review show on Sunday. No quick take, hot take this time. We'll do the review on Sunday.
For bicycle reasons.
But then once Gold Cup starts, then we'll be back into our quick take, hot take.
Yes.
All right. Yes. So then later on in the show, we're going to do some Confederations Cup final previewing. We're going to do some scouting reports. But first, we have a sponsor.
Sponsor is Woven. They debuted as a sponsor this past week. Woven.
First cap.
They're ready for their second cap today. Last week was a friendly. This is their first qualifier. It's the Gold Cup game.
I'm not sure what the difference is, but I'll run with this one, sure.
So Woven is a T-shirt subscription company. You pay $15 a month, and for that $15, you get a magnificent T-shirt with a surprise design on it. And the only thing I can't guarantee what the design will be. I can guarantee if you've got good taste, you'll like it.
See, yeah, and I think even no matter what your taste, I think you'll like it, which is a bold statement saying that you will like it no matter what.
I confidently stand behind that statement.
But I like it because you can choose, like, do you want a graphic tee or do you not? Do you want a V-neck or a crew neck? So you get those options. So at least, like, I like that aspect of being able to say, like, I don't really like V-necks, I'm going crew neck. But outside of that, I'm going to let them decide. And it sort of lets you off the hook in a way that you can then get something that you might otherwise not have bought for yourself, but you're going to wear because it's a nice shirt. And it's also kind of letting you off the hook a little bit, because then, say it is just like a shirt and someone's like, oh, I don't know, why are you wearing that one? You can be like, I don't know, it's just sent to me. I like it. Whatever. Like, so you're kind of, and then if somebody loves it, you can say, like, yes, I chose it myself. So you're kind of good either way.
And so Woven partner with graphic designers to create a design specifically for that month's T-shirt. So you get one designer puts all their thought into something that, it seems to me, based on the past designs, that fits the Woven style, which is sort of a minimalist or simple but clever design. Is that a good way to say it?
I think
it's
so,
never like big and splashy. It's always like something like very outlined and there's not too much going on there. There's just the right amount of going on.
Yeah, it never looks like they've taken a decal from something and just ironed it onto the shirt. It always
that's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's why I do love the different stuff. You'll see them on Reddit sometimes of like minimalist logos, and they've taken away a lot of the fuss, and it looks like smooth and clean. And that's exactly what these shirts look like.
Yeah, exactly. So it is $15 a month. You cancel any time, so you just get one T-shirt for $15. You can also, for your first month, use the code TSS 2017 for 25% off your first order at woven.com. WOHVEN.com. You laugh, I got it right.
You did. But I love that even when you knew you got it right, you were still like, but did I get it right, though? It was the double check, and I appreciated that.
And just to say, like, I think it's a really good price point. The business model, the way they do things, allows them to sell it for just $15. And from what I understand, a lot of TSS listeners have already taken us up on this offer. So it's a thing that TSS listeners are getting on board with.
And we appreciate that.
WOHVEN.com. See, I said it all the way straight through that time.
Good job.
TSS 2017 for 25% off. Thank you to Woven for sponsoring today's TSS.
And thank you to Germany and Chile for being in the Confederations Cup final.
That wasn't on behalf of Mexico fans.
It was
or
not.
Portugal fans.
No.
So yes, Sunday, the Confederations Cup final, will be Germany versus Chile, the champions of South America and all the Americas, versus the world champions of 2014.
Yep.
Yeah.
Decent matchup.
It will be, right? So we saw the first game, because these two played each other in the group stage. It finished 1-1. It was kind of an exciting game, right? It was Chile pressing high, Germany trying to pick their way through it, right? Kind of good stuff to watch. Alexis Sanchez scored early. Germany equalised with Stindl towards the end of the first half.
Yep.
What do we see happening in this game?
Roughly that.
The same patterns of like...
Yeah, that would be my guess, is you're going to see Chile play their game. And that's sort of risky given that they went all the way to penalties against Mexico, or excuse me, not against Mexico, against Portugal.
Yeah.
So they're going to be tired, especially because they didn't make that many changes in that game.
Do you notice this? The Chile team is kind of the only predictable thing about them is the lineup.
Yes.
Right? The way they play is kind of unpredictable and terrifying if you're up against them. But the lineup is kind of like, we know what it's going to be. It's going to be Vargas and Sanchez up front.
Yep.
Arturo Vidal just behind them. And then when they press, he pokes through the middle, just ahead of them. And then, the rest of the midfield is going to be Hernandez, Aranguiz, and
Diaz.
My favourite, Marcelo Diaz.
Yep.
Yes.
And you could see that as, like, they know what they're doing. They're going out. It's the same 11 every single time. They know how to get the results.
The Leicester City of international football?
Or you could see it as they don't have any depth. And so we can't really afford the drop-off. We're going to stick with what gets us here.
I never thought of it.
And so if it is
there's
the
not
latter...
Alexis Sanchez, though, is there? That's the thing.
No, there's really not. And if it is the latter, then you do wonder if the extra half an hour without using all the substitutions available. I think they ended up using 2, but one of those was right before the penalty, so they could get Hernandez off, and I forget who came on. It was the one who almost got the penalty. Silva, I think, maybe, possibly?
Yes, number 5, Silva, yeah.
But, again, because you have the extra sub in extra time, or excuse me, overtime.
Yeah, fourth sub if you need it in
extra time or overtime, just not injury time. Yeah, I think they only used 2 of possible 4 subs. Could be wrong on that one, but so you still wonder how fresh those legs are going to be.
I bet you could have said that in 2015 Copa America and 2016 Confederations Cup, and they have both those trophies.
This is very true. This is very true.
Do you want to get to specific predictions?
Sure.
We've made one each for each team.
We have.
I'll invite you to go first, Taylor. You choose. You choose the team you want to go with.
I will go with Chile, and I will say that Arturo Vidal will go full Arturo Vidal.
So what does that mean?
It means he's always going to be like...
Isn't he always full Arturo Vidal?
Yeah, a little bit. So it's obviously going to be full intensity, but I think the 2 things that I'm going to be looking for are, number 1, that moment of... just sublime skill where you're like, oh, right, he is one of the best players in the world. There's a reason why he plays for Bayern Munich. There's a reason why he is such a focal point of this team. So whether that's a through ball that splits 4 defenders, whether that's a rocket from distance or just a perfect touch, you'll see that technical ability. But he also has just those weird Arturo Vidal moments where it's like he slide tackles somebody and the ball pops up and then he does an overhead kick while on the ground to clear it. Or he does a diving header to pass the ball when it's like a 2-yard pass.
He did that against Australia, I think. He also had a diving chest back pass against Portugal that I think I uploaded on Twitter because I was just so impressed with it.
So I think...
Flung himself chest out, you puff your chest out and make yourself look tough. He did that mid-air, chested it back to Claudio Bravo.
Right. So you're going to have a moment with Arturo Vidal in this game of sublime skill, and then you're going to have the Arturo Vidal equivalent of Manny being Manny.
So I would call that a thing that only Arturo Vidal would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But that could also be like screaming at the crowd to get them going. It could be him just doing weird stuff to try to throw off a free kick taker. He did that against Portugal. So any number of reasons.
It's got to be unorthodox, extravagant Arturo.
Yep. There we are.
Which is definitely a t-shirt line you could come up with.
I think so. Also excited to see what his hair is going to look like for this one because it's going to be something special.
Okay, you went Chile, so I'm going to go Germany.
Okay.
So here's what I saw with Germany. I saw against Chile the first time, Joshua Kimmich played right wing-back and looked the most capable of handling the Chilean press because Kimmich is so good on the ball. Right? Mustafi in the back, not so good. He caused a panic a couple of times when that Chilean press came for him. We also saw against... Who did Germany just play? Mexico. You saw Heinrichs come on and play right wing back and Kimmich slot in the back. I think they're going to go like that again.
I would agree.
I think Kimmich is going to go and play centre back and he's going to be key to getting out of the Chilean press because he's the best passer coming out of the back. And I think him continually doing that means that by the end of the game, I will be able to make a case that Kimmich was the real MVP, though.
Okay.
And even if I'm not 100% right,
Yeah.
I'll be able to make a compelling case that you will have trouble arguing with.
All right.
He's my preemptive MVP.
I like that. So basically, it will be his performance will be such that I will have to be like, okay, yeah, I can see him as an MVP,
Yeah.
right? Not like we were doing the kickers commentary recently, and you kept trying to argue against the guy who had 2 goals in the game,
Yeah.
for the guy who had none.
Yeah, but just there's more to life than goal scoring.
No, there's not. That's
Like,
it.
does that mean like a goalkeeper can never be MVP?
If he scores a goal, he can. I'd say Claudio Bravo probably was.
Yeah, there we go.
In the knockout round. I also think, though, it's a smart prediction by you because I do think you're correct that I think Kimmich will be probably more likely to be one of the center backs because, number one, yes, he looks very good there.
And how do you drop Heinrichs after the game he had against Mexico?
And how do you drop Heinrichs when it means that that's probably Mustafi coming back in? Mustafi, I mean, my prediction was based on him starting my prediction against Mexico, and my concern was that he would give the ball away because he did it a couple times against Chile. He was a little bit too casual with it. He was a little bit too just loose trying to pass out of the back, and that's where that first goal came from Chile. So I think that will probably be on Yueill Löw's mind when he draws up his lineup, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised if Mustafi is on the bench.
So do you want to talk Yueill Löw a second?
Sure.
I think
He's
very,
good.
He's very good at figuring out what to do with his lineup that maximizes the strength of his team without moving too many things around and exploits something in the opposition. When we rewatched bits of the Chile-Germany first game, we saw that Chilean press comes with Sanchez and Vargas.
Trying to head off my specific prediction.
Oh,
yet?
is
'Cause I
that
feel
what
like
it
you
involves?
are.
Oh, then I will just turn it over to you for your
Yeah.
Chilean specific prediction.
Yeah, get out of here.
My apologies.
First of all, just to clarify, that was dramatic understatement when I said that Yueill Löw is good. Because I would say he's pretty good.
It's your German prediction.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, that's my German prediction, that Yueill Löw is good. No, it's that Germany will score a goal through the middle.
Oh, okay, because I was halfway through saying,
You were.
and I'll let you finish.
Essentially that you have that first wave of Chilean pressure, that front three that you already mentioned of Vargas, Sanchez, and then Vidal kind of filling that void in the middle.
Which is interesting because Vidal's supposed to be the central midfielder, right? But then he ends up, when he's pressing, he's ahead of the two forwards.
And it's so that tends to work for Chile. It does oftentimes force the opponent into booting that ball long or turning it over with an errant pass. But the strange thing about Chile is usually when you see that front three pushed all the way up, it's an aggressive press. You see the midfield following suit, and they're pressed up, the defense the same. They don't really do that, Chile. They tend to leave a big gap in the middle, and if you can get past that first wave of attackers, suddenly there's lots of space, and that's exactly how Germany scored. They, I would say, somewhat luckily bypass the Chilean press, but then they're away and there's a huge gap of space and everybody has to transition.
And I think normally what they do is they just trust that Vidal's going to hustle back and fill in that gap, right? I mean, it's not a gap of space like direct to goal. There's then defenders deeper, but there's suddenly that space to accelerate into, which I think is what John does for the German goal against Chile in the group stage game.
And this is where I don't want to overstate, because I know that Juan Antonio Pizzi is a very good coach, so don't get me wrong.
It's Carl Mooney's best character.
If Carl Mooney knew who Juan Antonio Pizzi was, I'd be shocked. But so he's a very good manager, don't get me wrong. But as we said, I think Chile, they do what they do, and they do it very, very well.
Yeah.
But I think Yueill Löw is a smart enough manager, and I think Germany are a good enough squad that they will be able to figure out ways around that. And I think if you look at that goal that Germany scored, the equalizer in the group stage, it came from exploiting that space, getting through there and finding some gaps. And I think that Yueill Löw will probably set his team up to do just that in this game. And because it's Chile kind of doing the same thing, even if they adjust a little bit and Pizzi gets some stuff right, you're still going to have that kind of overarching setup that I think Germany will be able to navigate.
So what is your specific prediction exactly?
That Germany will score a goal through the middle, which is to say that it won't the ball won't go wide and then be played in for a cross. It won't. I mean, maybe they'll score a goal that way. Maybe they'll score a goal from a set piece. But I'm predicting that they will score at least one goal by just coming straight through the middle. And it could be a run through.
Space to start with.
Yeah, a run through like Goretzka made against Mexico, where it would just be picking the ball up and breaking quickly on the counter.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it will come through that space in the middle.
Chile's only hope is Marcelo Diaz.
It's a good hope to have, though.
If he can step and get a tackle in, and then he launches the counter attack, this game could be incredible. This could be really end to end.
But then what if it's intercepted by Kimmich and suddenly it's a counter? Well,
then we just have to keep layering counters on top of counters on top of counters until we don't even know who started it.
Like the worst type of kitchen installer. We're not going to get rid of this counter, but we are going to add another one on top. Double counter.
Okay, the other thing with this is, what if Yueill Löw... I'm good with your prediction, but what if Yueill Löw says, all right, we tried to pass out of the back last time and it kind of worked, but also we got caught and it was hard. How about we play Chile this time? The actual clever tactical thing to do would be, let's bypass this whole thing and just lift it over the front three and drop it into midfield straight away. Like a chipped pass over Vidal's head into, say, Emre Can or Leon Goretzka in that bit of space first. Like, your prediction could still come true that way?
I love that, like, the Englishman in you just came out. It was like the simple way, the obvious tactic, the easy way to deal with this is just kick the ball long. Like, all right, England.
Just get Andy Carroll in
there.
Calm
it down. I mean, I would not be surprised if they look to ping some balls over the top. But as I said, number one, you don't usually have that Chilean backline stepping all the way up the way you would with, say, Liverpool when they play that high press. It's everybody stepping, and you've got a lot of space in behind. But the idea is that the opponent doesn't have the time to play that ball over the top. They can't pick their head up and spot it. So you're kind of forcing them into hitting an errant long ball because otherwise they're going to get dispossessed.
Because Chile won't even give them time to have time to look up and play a nice direct overball or anything.
But even
like
if they did, that back line is still deep enough, I think, that it kind of, you don't have that much space in behind.
You're right. And there's also, Timo Werner, Stindl, and Draxler. None of them are like big guys. None of them are target men, really. Werner's really more about sort of, like a Luis Suarez, right? Just trying to run in behind. But maybe it's like a semi-long ball, like lofted to the midfield, where like Goretzka can win the header.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible, but I think it could also just be a matter of, you put another player in midfield, and now it's because usually what happens is Arturo Vidal blocks that one central option, and so now you kind of can't play through the middle. But if you have another guy in there, then one of those Chilean midfielders either has to step or he doesn't, and you've got another open player in the middle. Or if they do, then you do have numerical advantages up top.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we've got your predictions.
Yep.
We need my Chile prediction, right?
Yep.
It's Vargas. You know, I'm a big Vargas fan. I kind of like how he just shoots from distance when necessary. My prediction is an either or. Vargas is going to shoot from distance, right? There's no point you disputing that. Either he's going to score from distance, he'll hit it on target, hit it top corner, Vargas goal.
I'm familiar with what scoring means.
Or he'll come up against the same thing that Mexico did, which is you end up with massed ranks of German defenders and midfielders, and he'll just be hitting shots into like walls of German defenders. So either Vargas will score, or he will have 3 blocked shots.
It won't be both?
He'll be trying.
So you're either saying he'll score from distance or have 3 block shots from outside the box.
And this is just like exactly. And this is like his day could go either way. It's going to go one of those two ways.
I'm just saying, does a block shot inside the box count?
I mean, not if it's like on the line and someone blocks it. It's got to be a shot from distance. So let's say outside the box.
There
Fair?
we are. Okay.
All right.
I take it.
The one guy we haven't mentioned, who I feel like we can't get away without mentioning, is Rudy. Rudy, to me, has been key for every German game that he's played. He was really key against Mexico because he was the perfect defensive midfielder, like breaking up play and getting things going in the other direction.
Yeah, I mean, he is I think we talked about this a little bit in a recent show. I can't remember who we were talking about, but usually you do have a couple players that come out of major tournaments with their price tag a little bit higher, or they get moves based off their performance in that tournament. Rudy would be one of those guys for me.
Yeah, you said Hoffenheim is where he's at?
I believe so.
Another guy, I don't think he's getting a big move because he's already got it, but we don't talk about him much. Julian Draxler.
Yeah, no, he's not getting a big move.
He's already got one. He's at PSG. A lot of people noticed many stepovers in the last game, but I liked it because they weren't just flashy. He was holding onto the ball, holding off defenders, and then finding a simple pass.
Well, some were flashy, maybe a little bit unnecessarily flashy.
Really? Okay.
But I think you have to have that because if you're always doing the routine necessary step over, then it's easy to predict. It's easy to be like, okay, now I got to pay attention here. But if it's just doing the flash step over, every now and then the defender might just be like, oh, he's doing step overs, not realizing that it can lead to a goal. I mean, it did. Germany's third goal, I believe, came from him doing a quick little step over, and then it was like an outside of the put shuffle pass that then led to the goal. Okay. So it's like he knows how to be flashy just to dance on the ball and be pretty and get highlights. But it's also he knows how to dance on the ball, but then turn that into an actual meaningful play.
And one of the other cool things about this weird squad that Jogi Löw has picked for the Confederations Cup is that Draxler gets to captain this team.
Kind of ridiculous.
It's weird to think, right? Because you would never see him captain the German team when everybody else is there.
Nope, you sure wouldn't.
Right? All right, so that game
I feel like he should let Ter Stegen captain this team once. It's like, come on, we know he's not going to play barring a horrific injury to Manuel Neuer. And even then, I feel like Neuer might still play. He could have one leg and be like, I'm fine.
I just won't do the sweeper keeper thing. I'll just still stop all
He still might. crush his way out there and save the ball.
So that game is Sunday. We will be back on Sunday with a review of both games, right? It's going to be a buy one, get one free, USA v Ghana review, and Confederations Cup final review.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Okay, moving on. Final thing on today's show is the TSS Scouting Network. But before we do move on, actually, there's one thing I wanted to say. This is a coded message. If you are a grey-haired gamer who plays a lot of Football Manager 2017, there's one person out there who knows who I'm talking to.
Uh-huh.
You twigged it, you got it right, but it's a secret, so please don't tell anyone just yet.
That was such gibberish. And I even know what you're saying.
To one person it wasn't.
That's true. And to everyone else, I apologize.
Scouting Network.
Yes, sir.
TSS Scouting Network. You're up first, Taylor.
7 reports today, 3 of which relate to the US Open Cup. The first one comes from James Jones, scouting Andrew Carleton. Carleton started on the left wing for Atlanta United's trip to Miami FC in the US Open Cup. The teenager played well, went the full 90, and won the penalty that tied the game at 2 in the second half. James then says he would rather not talk about the rest of the game.
Well, I'm afraid we'll have to just fill in the rest, which is that Miami FC won 3-2.
Yep, courtesy of the aforementioned Quadwo Poku.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Russell Varner is scouting Hugo Arrellano. Arrellano started and played all 90 minutes in LA's 2-0 Open Cup win over Sacramento, tallying his first assist with the first team and putting in a solid overall performance.
Well
US
done,
Open
Hugo.
Cup is very much the Carling Cup of the United States, isn't it?
Yes, it is. For some teams, for others not. I would say Cincinnati don't see it that way.
Uh-huh.
Zachary Lindquist scouting Jackson Yueill.
Ooh,
yep,
yes.
The American midfielder for San Jose. Zachary says, after Dom Kinnear was fired, Zachary was worried about Yueill's status with the new manager, Chris Leach. Questions seem to have been answered in San Jose's U.S. Open Cup match against the Sounders. Yueill started in the heart of a 3-5-2, which sometimes was a 3-6-1, apparently.
Was Tommy Thompson was like the Diego
Thompson
Maradona.
was floating. Yes,
he was the Diego Maradona of 86, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
And Yueill set up the game-winning goal with a nice ball into the feet of Danny Hoesen?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Hoesen.
There we go. Jackson now has a goal and an assist in his last 3 games.
All right, Jackson Yueill, a young US player to definitely keep an eye on.
Yarp.
Jeff Markman is scouting Jeff Rene Adelaide. Arsenal's new fullback, Siad Kolasinac, has been given the number 31 shirt. I think that was pretty close.
I think he did well.
Which the Jeff wore last season. That's prompted some speculation that the Jeff might head out on loan. But Jeff Markman says there's also a good chance Rene Adelaide just takes a higher squad number.
So we shall see. I think
squad number speculation at the Emirates.
I think he said, but this is what happens when it's the transfer window.
Yes.
Michael Fisk scouting Andreas Christensen. Christensen took to Instagram to post a goodbye message to both Borussia Mönchengladbach and the club's fans. It was very heartfelt. It was a very sweet message, and it was very emotional, which made Michael wonder if there's a chance that if Christensen doesn't crack the Chelsea first team, if maybe we see him back at Gladbach at some point.
Because wasn't the message, I think I saw this, wasn't the message like once Borussia, forever Borussia?
Yeah, something like that. Or, yeah, it was Borussia.
Which
it threw me for a second.
Subtext is, if I can't crack the Chelsea team, I'll be back.
But it also threw me
Keep
for a
my spot
minute
warm.
because there are lots of Borussias, or at least there are two Borussias, and I was like, does this mean like if you go to Dortmund, you're still covered?
I do not believe so.
Imagine that wouldn't go too well.
Speaking of Instagram, we are upping our Instagram game.
I forgot that post was on Instagram.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was speaking of Instagram for a second.
We've started adding some photos to Instagram, a lot of photos from in studio and from around Richmond. So follow us on Instagram for a lot more photographic evidence of the Total Soccer Show. Are you taking a photo now?
I just took a photo of Daryl right now. So there you go. I'll post that one later. You can see Daryl talking about Instagram.
Oh, this is way too meta.
We're very, very meta. I might also, worth adding here, if I can find the photo that my wife drew, because every time we say the name of the head coach of the U.S. national team very fast, I immediately think of that drawing. Do you remember it?
Yes, please find that and post it.
Should I just leave it at that and we can make people go look on Instagram for what I'm talking about?
Yeah, when we post it, yeah. Oh, wow, that's so good. So good. Okay. Kristen Mladenia, scouting Brielle Embolo. Kristen, stalwart Total Soccer Show Scouting Network scouter, right? The players are scoutees?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Scout is the word. Kirsten scouting Embolo.
It's scoutery, but whatever. Yeah, that's fine.
Kirsten says Embolo will resume first team training on July 1st. tomorrow, which is especially exciting given that there were concerns he would miss the start of the season about being out of commission since March. Kirsten says there's plenty of room for Embolo in Schalke's strike force. Klaus-Jan Huntelaar has left for Ajax, and pretty much everyone else underwhelmed last season.
Except for, I think, one player whose name I forget. And finally, Michael Curry scouting Haji Wright of Schalke. Both Michael and Kirsten let us know that Schalke have a new manager. It would be... He looks at the screen. Domenico Tedesco. He is their 9th manager in 6 years. I think he is only 31 years old. So lots to pay attention to there.
It's a Bundesliga trend, right? Younger and younger coaches.
Eventually, it's just going to be a baby.
Yeah. Someone will just interpret his baby noises like on The Simpsons.
Well, I guess we'll have to see if Jose Mourinho ever makes his way to the Bundesliga. Boom. So... That was the first manager I could think of off the top of my head. I don't know who's more baby-like than that. Anyway, Michael says regarding Haji Wright and Weston McKennie that Tedesco has said they're both still part of his plans, but they will have to prove themselves.
He inherited them, right? They've been moved up to the first-team squad, but then he comes in. And I guess like, when you're in, you like look at who's at the bottom of the totem pole, and you're like, do I need these guys?
Yeah.
So he said what? That he's going to give them a chance.
He said, I think I've mentioned this before, and it's increasingly become one of my like favorite things. I'm not going to say obsessions, but just a thing I enjoy is when managers give quotes that sound like they are straight out of Football Manager. And this one, like again, was roughly the equivalent of
like a template response.
It really was like they are in my plans, but they have to prove themselves. If they cannot prove themselves, and others can, then they will be sent out on loan or find other clubs. But for now, we are hoping for the best. And it's just like, thank you, computer pretending to be a human.
Either way, Schalke the team to watch, right, for Americans next season to see if McKennie and Wright and maybe even Nick Tategui make the break.
Schalke Erica? Is that where we're at?
I think we went with Schalke Erica. I'm still not thrilled about it.
United Schalke of America? No,
nothing quite works, does it? Schalke America.
Yeah.
All right.
Why not?
Thank you to James, to Russell, to Zach, to Jeff, to Michael, to Kirsten, and to Michael again for all the scouting reports. Thank you to everybody else who is sending in scouting reports. If you'd like to join the TSS Scouting Network, it is totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. That's where all the info is. All right, Taylor, we're going to take kind of a day off, and we'll be back on Sunday to review USA Ghana and the Confederations Cup. But then after that, just to warn people, we're going to take a bit of a break after that for July 4th, right? So we're going to be off like July 3rd, 4th, 5th, back on the 6th. Sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay, to preview the USA-Panama game, and we'll have a lot more information to do it with at that point.
And because many people have asked for it, and the new season is coming, also worth teasing, next week... Excuse me, not next week. The week after next. Our Game of Thrones 11.
Yeah.
I was going to maybe let you go the whole way. We did have somebody say that they enjoyed your singing voice, right? Was that on Twitter or was that Ryan Bailey?
They confused me with Ryan on the Daily Tackle podcast and enjoyed what they thought was my singing voice but was actually Ryan Bailey's.
I think I've heard you sing on the Goalmouth podcast before.
Yeah, it wasn't as good as Ryan or George. So
yeah, George loves the song. I feel like he's secretly using this as a demo.
I'm in 3rd place for Goalmouth singing.
And I don't think Brooks has ever sung before,
no,
but
you haven't either.
But I've sung once, and I am confidently in 5th.
Oh, have you?
I'm definitely in 5th place.
When did you sing on the Goalmouth?
I don't even feel comfortable repeating the joke I made, but it was essentially joking about the meeting that who's your boy who plays for PSG but wants to move?
Julian Drexler?
No.
Marco Verratti.
There we go.
Verratti.
When Verratti was spotted with somebody in the island that you were in.
Yes.
What's it called?
Ibiza.
So there's the Mike Posner song, and it was like Had a Breakfast in Ibiza, which is the G version of that song is what I think I said, but I sang that very quickly.
Oh, the Goalmouth.
All that to say that even though Brooks hasn't sung yet, I am definitely the 5th best singer of the 5 hosts.
All right, someone please tweet at BrooksDT, at BrooksDT, his name and the letters D and T afterwards. Let him know that you want to hear him sing on the Goalmouth. We've got to hear
But please don't explain where that came from.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get 15 messages.
Let's just launch a campaign. Get Brooks singing.
Let's not tell him. Just everybody tweet at Brooks and say, we want to hear you sing. Just so he'll be like, guys, do you know what's happening?
I'm going to put his Twitter handle in the show notes just so you can't miss it. And please ask him to sing on the Goalmouth. The people demand it.
This is a weird social media episode of the Total Soccer Show, but I'm cool with it.
All right, Taylor, thank you for taking the time to talk to me and terrorize Brooks today.
Yep, my pleasure. Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again on Sunday with our reviews of USA Ghana and Germany Chile.